Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it will be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story, entitled Mom Omnibus, Part 2. Previously on how my life became so insane, I took my infant daughter out for our weekly coffee date. While there, an entitled mother with her daughter appeared and tried to grab my baby, and she left with a broken nose and some criminal charges. I left with my baby and a ridiculous lawsuit. Me and my husband go to her criminal court trial and her husband says some racist nonsense to my husband. She was found not guilty on most of her charges and is sentenced to probation and some therapy. Episode whatever in this melodrama. This is a new stuff. The civil case was supposed to be on July 9th, but the case was dropped. I was so happy. After months of this crap, I was ready to put all of this behind me and move on with our lives. I don't know why I was so naive. I should have known that a crazy, entitled mother like that would not give up so easily. One evening, on my way back from our mommy and me yoga class, I noticed a woman parked across the street from my house. I thought it was the entitled mother, but I brushed it off, thinking that I was paranoid because all of this started after one of our classes. I took my baby inside and got her settled. When I looked out the window, the car was gone. I went about my business until Saturday. The weather on this particular Saturday morning was just gorgeous, so I decided to take my baby to the park. It was still early, about 9 a.m. That car was parked on my street again, but this time it was empty. We walked to the park and were there for about 30 minutes before I noticed the same car. Again, empty. I know it was the same car because of the hideous seat covers, pink leopard print. I was a little on edge, so I gathered up my baby and started to leave. Then I saw her. She was about 15 feet away from us, and it was definitely the entitled mother. She was there, but her daughter was nowhere in sight. I was starting to worry that she had moved on to my street. When I got home, it was empty, which is normal, because my husband likes to go to the gym a little later on Saturday. I got my baby a snack and called my neighbor/friend. I asked her if she knows if anyone moved on to the street lately, and she did not think anyone did. Neither of us had noticed any sign of a move-in either. Not that we pay especially close attention. I told her about seeing the entitled mother, and we both decided that it was probably a coincidence. We chatted for a little while until it was time for my baby's nap. As soon as I finished putting her down and went down the stairs, my husband came in. It calmed my nerves to see him, at least until we had this conversation. He asks me, "Were you expecting someone this morning?" "No, why?" "I thought I heard someone knocking on the door this morning, but by the time I got downstairs they were already gone." And right away I was on edge again. I thought about that empty car. Even if it wasn't me, why would someone just knock and leave like that? I told my husband about seeing the entitled mother, and I decided that it could be a coincidence or it might not, so we will keep an eye out and the police on speed dial. Everything was normal for a few days, but then I saw the car again. This continued for about a week to 2 weeks. I would see the car, and then it would be back a few days later. It would be at different times and places. I began to feel paranoid, like I was being watched all the time. One day I tried to confront her, but she drove away. At the 2-week mark, I decided that I had had enough and would go to the police station the next morning. And that is exactly what I did. The police handled everything just like I thought they would. By that I mean that they treated me like a crazy person and told me that a car being on a public street is not a crime. And since no threats have been made, There was not much that they could do or would do. It was a great waste of time for everyone. About 2 days later, I was leaving for work when I noticed that all 4 of my tires had been slashed. The next weekend, I was working in a garden while my baby played next to me. I noticed a little blue-green pellet that I immediately recognized. It was rat poison. I was outraged that the city would just throw poison into people's lawns. What if my baby would have eaten it? I also have a cat who could die if they eat a poisoned rat. I was whining to my neighbor, ready to turn into a Karen myself, when he told me 2 things that turned my stomach and left me gagging. 1. No one else has or has ever found rat poison pellets in their yard. 2. When the city does rat control, they only put poison in the rat burrows. I wouldn't have them just randomly in the yard. I was horrified. My daughter could have eaten one of those. I called the police non-emergency line and told them what was happening. And again, I was dismissed. My daughter could have died and they acted like no big deal. I was told they would look into it and that was that. I'm just going to list some of the things that happened over the next few weeks. My garden was torn up by a person who literally just ripped up handfuls of flowers. I saw that car 15 times. Someone set up an automatic wake-up call for my phone at 3 a.m. Once I figured out how to get the auto calls to stop, someone would call me and hang up to 3 times a day. I would block the number and a new number would call. We went away for a few days, and while we were gone I received a photo text from outside of my house with the message, "See you soon." I immediately rushed us home, and when we got there someone had thrown a rock through my window. This was the last straw for me. I rushed into Mama Bear mode. I took my daughter to my mother's, and my husband went to the store and picked up some security cameras. We called the police, took photos, and looked for our cat. He was hiding under our porch. My husband set up the cameras, and I filed for an emergency protection order. In my state, when you file for one of those, they go into effect immediately. And there is a hearing later to determine if it will be permanent and all that. Things calmed down for a few days and I brought my baby home. I thought maybe the order would keep the entitled mother away, because if she broke it, she would violate her parole and spend some time in jail. Again, I underestimated crazy. One evening I came home from work and picked up my baby and I walked up to the door. On my porch, there is a black mostly empty garbage bag. My baby was still sleeping from the car ride, so I put her inside the house and came back out. I thought it may have been my husband being careless. I thought it could have been trash or dirty gym clothes or something that he was going to donate or whatever. So I looked inside, and before any conscious thought registered, I was gagging from the smell of decomposition. And inside that bag was a dead cat. It was warm, possibly from the summer heat. I immediately panicked and I went back inside, crying, calling and searching for our cat. In my emotional state, I had woken my baby and she was screaming and crying too. Our cat was up in our bedroom taking a nap and very much alive. I was so overwhelmed by emotions. I was happy that our cat was okay, but that didn't stop the panic attack that followed. I called my husband, hyperventilating as our daughter continued to cry, and told him to get home right now. Luckily, he was already on the way. My husband called the police on his way home, and they arrived soon after he did. They took photos and watched the security camera footage. The cameras clearly showed the entitled mother leaving the bag on my porch. We gave the police the footage and the bag. I took my baby to my mom's again, and I was going to stay too, but I had to clean up my house. So my husband and I returned home and cleaned up. I also had to have another meal done, and we stayed at my mom's overnight. In the morning, I had a meeting with the police, so my mom stayed with my daughter, and husband went to work. The police took my statement and let me know that they were already working with a judge and expected to pick up the entitled mother by tonight or tomorrow. I was just ready for this all to be over. I really felt powerless. While I was in the meeting, my mother texted me to pick up some teething gel for my baby and some toys as well. So I stopped by the house. I grabbed an extra change of clothes for everyone and the stuff for my daughter. While I'm in her room, I look out the window. It faces the backyard, and I see the entitled mother in our shed rummaging around. I flew into an immediate rage. I was already halfway down the stairs before I stopped myself. I went back into my daughter's room and called the police. I told them that someone was breaking in. While I was on the phone, the entitled mother walked up and tried to open my back door. It was locked, so I don't know what she thought turning the handle would do. I crept downstairs and I went into my kitchen. I looked out the window and the entitled mother was walking towards my back door again. So I moved over and stood against the wall at the back door. I thought she was going to try the door again, but instead, she broke my window. Instinctively, I grabbed the closest thing off the counter and she looked into the door. And I hit her with it. She fell back and her nose was bleeding again. Apparently, I hit her with a dirty bacon tray. And I raised the tray again, but she started to run the other way, around to the front of the house. Just as she made it to the front yard, the police were getting out of their cars, and I opened the front door, tray in hand, just in time to hear this. She screams, "Thank God you got here in time! Someone broke into my home and attacked me! Get in there and shoot her! There she is now, and she's armed! Shoot her!" When she screamed and pointed at me, the cop immediately pulled his gun at me. I immediately dropped the tray and froze up. I really thought he was going to shoot me, but the cop lowers his gun. Another squad car pulls up and 2 more officers start getting out of the car. There are a total of 4 cops in my yard now, and I'm still frozen. "What are you doing? Shoot her!" "Ma'am, I need you to calm down." Another cop walks up and goes to grab my arm. I pull away on reflex. I say, "This is my house." "She's lying, look at me. She clearly attacked me." "Well, yeah, because you broke my window and were coming in." "How dare you? I have lived here for years." "You lying witch." I must have moved towards her because the cop next to me grabs me by the arm. I'll be honest, I wasn't thinking really clearly. "Let me go, this is my house." And the entitled mother starts crying. "See, she's crazy. Thank God you came when you did." "It's okay, ma'am. Follow me to the squad car so I can take your statement." 2 cops go with her to the car and 2 stand with me on the Porsche. I'm shocked really and freaking out, but I start to think clearly again. This is my house. Okay, I can prove it. Finally, not being an idiot. And the cop tells me again, okay. My purse is inside by the stairs. My license is in there. Cop 2 nods at Cop 3, and Cop 3 went inside and comes back out with my purse. He goes through it and pulls out my license. Then Cop 2 and 3 nod at each other. Cop 3 walks down into the yard and waves Cop 4 over. They talk for a moment and Cop 4 goes back over to 1 and the entitled mother. Then Cop 3 returns over to me. We're sorry, miss," he tells me. Cop 4 pulled up the police report from yesterday. "I'm sorry about the stress, at least she was caught in the act, blah blah blah." While Cop 3 was talking to me, Cop 4 was talking to the entitled mother. I'm not sure what he said, but the entitled mother turned even paler than she is, and she tried to run away. She didn't get far and ended up eating pavement. Few minutes later, I was given another statement, and the entitled mother was glaring at me as she was driven away. After I gave my statement, the cops took a few photos, and they left. I called my husband home again. He stayed and cleaned up and had to board up our window. We stayed at my mom's for another 2 days, and we didn't go home until we found out that the entitled mother was denied bail. In the end, she was found to have violated her parole. so she must spend the rest of her sentence in jail. They also added a stalking charge, animal cruelty, and breaking and entering. I expect that she will be in jail for a few years at least. I really hope that this is my last update. I am also really grateful that so many people showed concern after my last post. Next story. My coworker refused to feed the client's animals, so I made her stay her whole shift. I work for a 24-hour business. Basically, for each client, one person works for 12 hours, then the other one comes in and the first one leaves. And I stay another 12 hours, rinse and repeat. Well, today my regular day person was sick, so they called in a fill-in. We have to report things to the day person about the night shift. My replacement showed up in a foul mood. I greeted her and started to explain to the client. And she cut me off and said, "Can you come in an hour early for me tonight? I have a church thing." I looked at the clock and it was 9 a.m. I had been there 13 hours and I still had a 30-minute drive home. I told her that she would have to take that up with our boss. She said the boss said to ask me. I told her I couldn't because I'd already lost an hour of off time and that would lose me another. I had to sleep sometime. She said please, and I said no, I can't lose that much sleep. Then she got the phone and started yelling, saying that she shouldn't have said she'd fill in. I wasn't concerned cause it's not my business. I told her the animals needed to be fed in a few hours. And she said, "I don't do animals." I asked, "What do you mean you don't do animals?" And she just repeated herself. I asked, "So you're not going to feed them?" "I'm only asking because if you aren't, then I'll feed them before I leave." And she snapped at me and told me to go home. I reiterated one more time that I was happy to feed them before I left. And she started yelling at me again, and I left. I called my boss and told her what happened. She said that she would deal with it. I assumed they would let her go home and replace her. Well, I was wrong. She's still there, and now I'm not looking forward to reliving her night. I left work at my normal time, but because I was still upset, I didn't stop to eat like I normally do. So I'm about 30 minutes early and I thought of going in early, but instead, I'm just sitting at a local coffee shop having a cuppa. I'm sorry, but you don't get to treat me like crap and expect me to turn around and do you a favor. If she had just left me alone, I 100% would have just gone in when I got there. But instead, she had to be mean to not just me, but to the animals as well. No, you get to stay your full 12 hours, and I'll be there at my regular time. Screw you, Karen. Also yes, my boss made sure the animals were fed. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.